Yes. What's up, guys? I am very small. Now I'm bigger. That's as big as I'm going to get. What's up, colleagues? What's up, coworkers? I'm going to take these headphones off. I'm not talking to anybody, but I like to hear the intro song. Okay, and that's right. Yes, smash that like button. I appreciate you guys being here on a Wednesday. And to answer your question, Gabriel, yes, we are running late. And when I say we, I mean me. I was running late today, and you guys should know what goes on every Wednesday when I want to do a bonus show. At about 1 o'clock, I go, I don't have enough stories. And I call Sarah and I'm like, I don't know if I should do a bonus show on enough stories. And she says, do the show. And then I feel like a huge puss. And then here I am. So, as always, I will warn you, I'm not sure if I have enough stories, but we live in times where if I can't gather enough stories, then I'm not doing my job. Now, what I did not do is drop in one other thing because I do want to get to the CBS merger that we're going to talk. I went through the painstaking job of making a flow chart. Y'all know I love my flow chart. Shut up. I love them. I really do like to make flow charts. And I wasn't going to break this one out today because it is not my best work. But I think it's important because the meeting is coming up tomorrow on Friday, tomorrow. So I will drop this in. But in the meantime, I want to say, first of all, what's up to you, colleagues? Before we get started, is anybody doing anything fun this weekend? Because for God's sakes, we all need like a little bit of good news this weekend. It can't all be bad. And so I'm praying that somebody's doing something super fun, something that they enjoy. This week, well, today I'm going to dinner with my friend Jen and her husband and Sarah. It's kind of their last dinner as our girl Jen is super pregnant. So happy she found an amazing dude. And so this is probably their last outing before she is with child. And I feel like there should be a special name for that. The last at bat, Jen is super fun and has been a good friend to Sar forever. I believe they went to University of Florida together, and we're going to talk about University of Florida today, Sar. And it's not about sports, which is always bad if we're talking about the University of Florida. If it's not sports with UF, it's the tight end. Who is it? Aaron Gonzalez. What was his name? Is that his name? Sorry, what was his name? Who was your murdering tight end that went to UF and played for the Patriots? If it's not sports, it's not great for the University of Florida. In this case, we're talking about young Republicans as they relate to the University of Florida. So that's real bad. But before we get to that, I do want to bring up something that actually did happen to Sarah, since we are talking about my beloved girlfriend. This past weekend, she got a weird, I believe it was an email, and whether we know it or not, we are all much, much better at spotting scams than we were just even a year or two ago. And she got this letter. So let me pop this up. And it says that she's being summoned to court in New Mexico over a toll violation. Yeah, scary stuff. You are hereby noted to have alleged to have committed the following violation, singular, within Albuquerque, New Mexico. And so they go on to have a bunch of BS charges trumped up against my baby. But her being eagle-eyed, she looked at the state seal and she was like, that's weird. What state was I born in? And my girlfriend, guys, was born in the great state of New Mexico. We haven't really nailed AI yet. We're getting better. But sometimes when you're trying to scam somebody, you get all flustered and you get in a hurry, and your other scam buddy that's on the phone with some grandmother in Vermont telling her that her grandson needs 10 grand. You say, how do you spell New Mexico? And he goes, the first letter is an N and a W. And you go, cool, got it. print, and that's what you get. And shout out to John Smith, clerk of the court. What do you do for a mommy? When I grow up, I want to be clerk of the court. So shout out to my girlfriend. Yeah, thank you, Christina, for finding the silver lining in there. At least they spelled Albuquerque right. I bet you a bunch of people that ain't scammers would have no chance doing that. I always got to sound it out. I just go AlBQRQ. I don't know if that works, but that's how I do it. And I'm sure I'm spelling it wrong as well. So I take back any derogatory comments I may have made about that scammer. Good luck to you ripping off people in the future. Speaking of good news, which we're going to focus on before we get all up in other goings on, let's give a shout out to Venezuela, who beat the United States team, the Americans, 3-2 in the World Baseball Classic last night in Miami. And I am just going to be, before we get to this, Amy, you got a similar text? Oh yeah. Look, I think they just carpet bomb with the scams. And if you send 100,000 out, how many are you going to get back? Even if you get 60 back, whatever, it's no skin off your back, and you just get that fake toll money. But getting back to the World Baseball Classic, Venezuela beat the U.S. 3-2 last night. Great game. Venezuela led most of the game 2-0, and then Bryce Drew, I believe in the bottom of the seventh or the top of the eighth, he hit a 2-run home run with 2 outs and tied the game 2-2. And he came around third base, gave a salute, and kind of walked a little bit. I think in any other game, that would have mean the next batter up would have had a ball thrown at his head. You don't show the pitcher up, but big stakes, so you can't afford to do that kind of stuff. So he went on and he tied the game 2-2, and it was just I love the World Baseball Classic, and I told Sarah this because there's so much passion, especially from the Latin ball teams, but everybody, even the U.S., everybody's playing so hard. Italy came out of nowhere. Who knew Italians knew how to play baseball that well? I never thought about Italy balling like that in baseball. I figured, they'll make a run in soccer every once in a while, but I didn't know that they had cranked out so many good players that they actually beat the U.S. at one point in this tournament. But Venezuela went on to win 3-2, and I was just really happy. I picked this picture in particular because if you think about all what's going on in Venezuela, even on this show, we have no other way to talk about Venezuela than from our perspective. You rarely even see Venezuelans on TV just saying their perspective. It's so interesting how we as Americans, and we're only going on the information we're given, we're so quick to talk about another country. Oh, let me tell you why Iran wants a new regime. Let me tell you why Venezuelans were so happy that they got Maduro out of there. You don't know. Even if you know one or two Venezuelans, what if somebody said, I could tell you what's going on in the U.S. at any one time? My sister married a guy from Nashville. You don't know how a country is doing, but I think in general, it's safe to say that Venezuela is a country that's, usually on unstable ground. It's a country that has been constantly under attack from the people that are usually running it. And, I forgot the name of the philosopher. And he was a sociologist as well. He just passed away, Michael. Oh man, that's going to kill me. I'll find it tomorrow, but he gave this really interesting speech. He passed away this year, and I listened to a lot of his speeches on college campuses, and he said something that really changed my thinking, my paradigm as it pertains to how we view rich and poor countries. He was like, the global we look at countries like the Philippines and Venezuela, and they're like, oh, those are poor countries. They're not. Venezuela has incredible natural resources. Philippines have incredible natural resources. The country is rich. The people are poor because those in power keep them that way. So we need to know that when we constantly question why certain countries are always under some kind of authoritarian rule, some kind of cruel leadership, it's usually because that person is in power to keep the people poor while they rob the country blind. Remember Ferdinand Marcos and his wife Imelda Marcos? I think remember Imelda Marcos had like what was it like? Was it 10,000 shoes or 100,000 shoes or something like that? And it's um it's a tragedy, and it really does shape the way that people view these countries. They go, well, what are we going to do? Venezuela is just those people are out of control. They're not. They people want a stable government, a working electrical grid, and a working sanitation system, and the people in power continuously fail to provide that. So shout out to Venezuela. It was so emotional last night. The players were crying. The guy that was interviewing the player of the game, the interviewer was being very professional, but he was holding back tears too. The emotion was just palpable, and I'm really happy for the nation of Venezuela on this morning. That was a big deal to them. All right, let's move on. Let's just knock this one out. Have you guys been following this woman's story? She is Corinne Kitchens. That's right, Corinne Kitchens. If you see that look, that's the look of a woman that was just found guilty in the murder of her husband. Let me read what, and when I say what I have here for you, what Michael Dean has. Okay. As it pertains to, and you guys may have heard of, this woman's from Utah, and Utah mom Corinne Kitchens was found guilty of murdering her husband after prosecutors said she poisoned him, and then later wrote a children's book about him. Do you remember this story now? She profited off of the murder of her husband, in which she committed. She then later wrote a children's book about grief centered on helping her sons cope with his death. You should be able to write another book from jail called, yeah, Sorry, Mommy's a Dirtbag. The true crime part is always shocking, but the book twist makes the case feel especially chilling. So I want to ask you guys, what do you think is the worst part? The part that this man, because if you follow the case, I was really into this case maybe 2 years ago, maybe even 3. I think DBL was still on the air and we were kind of talking about this. But she had a husband who loved the mess out of her. She had a good man. He was hardworking and he was very successful. I believe, I don't want to lie on a dead person's name, but I believe he had a successful like woodworking company. He worked with his hands. I think he made furniture, and he was very successful at doing that. And instead of being happy with that, she is a narcissist, a clear cut. And we throw that word around a lot. She's a real one. She's a real narcissist and did not really think he's that great. And she was like, well, I'm going to make money too. I'm going to get into real estate, bitch. How you like that? I'm going to be making money too. And everybody won't be praising my wonderful husband that fell out of the sky and saved me from dressing like a referee at a Foot Locker convention. You know, she got into real estate. Her real estate business failed, went belly up. And this enraged her. So instead of just doing what any gold digger would do, which is shut your mouth and enjoy the ride, you know, maybe Melania Trump needs to write a book called How to Get Y'all Chicks in Line. But yeah, she instead was so insanely jealous of her husband that she was like, well, I'm just going to kill him. So kill him and take the life insurance money. And now this case is coming back to me, y'all. Okay, here's what happened. They had, and this is kind of like when fentanyl was becoming like a big buzzword in the United States. That's what it says, like 3 years ago. And she had a Hispanic housekeeper that she went over to and was like, hey, you're probably poor. you know some drug dealers. Can you get me some fentanyl? It's the same thing Rush Limbaugh did. Remember, he bought a bunch of Oxycontins from his housekeeper, and then that same housekeeper later set him up with an FBI wire and caught him buying a duffel bag full of Oxycontin. Yeah, he did so much Oxycontin, he went deaf. Um, Too bad we all didn't, so we didn't have to listen to his bullshit on the radio. We don't miss you, Russ. I digress. So she tried to buy fentanyl from her housekeeper. She did, but she's a suburban mom, not a lot of street sense. Guess she didn't mix enough in there. And I don't know if she tried to put it in his juice or something the first time, but he was like, I feel sick, and she's like, oh, you're fine. You just need to go to sleep. And he did, and he was really sick. He was poisoned. He didn't know it. And she waited for her plan to take hold, but it didn't. He got sick and then he got better. And she was like, damn it, good to see you're back, honey. You want to go jogging? So she realized she had to up the dosage and at the same time plot her kind of alibi as to why did this man all of a sudden just die in your home and then leave you. Oh, and here's the thing. This is what I remember about this case. After she poisoned him the first time, I guess her husband and his sister were really close. And he went to the sister and he was like, I think this chick trying to do something. And she was like, me too. And he changed his will. He changed his will a few weeks before. And he had all his money, which I guess was pretty substantial, going to his sons. And I think his sister was going to be the head of the trust. So second time she poisons him, she laces his nighttime gummies with fentanyl because that was going to be her thing. When the cops were like, how did your healthy outdoorsman husband drop dead out of nowhere and you just get the life insurance policy? She was like, he was a drug addict. He took weed gummies sometime to go to sleep. That's seriously what her plan was. Unfortunately, it did work. He did die. But when she found out that the will had been changed, she broke into the garage that had the safe that had all their financial papers and tried to get in there, but the safe was locked and the code was changed. I remember all this. So she hired a locksmith to come over and drill through the safe to get it open. The sister, who he was cool with, knew she was doing some BS, went over there, stepped to her like, yo, this looks real shady right now. My brother's body isn't even cold yet. And you got some random locksmith over here going into your safe. What would he be doing? And she physically attacked his sister. And I think like punched her in the face a bunch of times. So long story short, she's been convicted and she'll be going to jail for a long time. And maybe while she's in there, she can take some real estate courses. And when she comes out, maybe it'll do a little better. All right, let's move on. I thought this was an interesting story as well. Let me get I do want to pull this up. I kind of want to do this now. So let me pull up that's image 6256. Okay. Let's do this. Okay. We're doing it. Okay, you need to go away. And there it is. Okay. This is kind of what I wanted to talk to y'all about today, colleagues. Is it time to cancel HBO Max and CNN, Paramount? I think we might need to start having that conversation. I'll tell you why. Larry Ellison, the guy I pictured above, who has that, it's like the same kind of, they all have the same kind of plastic surgeon. Have you ever looked at a Hollywood celebrity and you're like, oh, you have the same face J-Lo has? There's only probably so many of these guys that work with the top richest people. And, they can only do so many different faces. They're like, do you want the Kelly Ripa or do you want the J-Lo? I can, and this guy was just like, who is that woman that almost turned into a cat? Give me half of that and then back it off a little bit. Larry Ellison, who bought TikTok after the Democrats included 2 years ago, started this, almost like Red Scare level panic that the Chinese are spying on us through TikTok. And all TikTok users were like, no, they're not, and we don't care. They were like, yeah, they're coming for your kids. Democrats and Biden and all the Pelosi, everybody was like, yeah, I think he's right. It's like, what are y'all doing? Well, what they did was they forced the sale from China to an American owner that is friendly with this fascistic regime. That owner is Larry Ellison. Larry Ellison also owns Oracle, and now he owns TikTok. Larry Ellison was like, you know what? Why don't I just own everything? That would make it way easier. But I'm getting a lot of plastic surgery. So I'm going to pass it off to my son, David Ellison, who I was too lazy to get a headshot of, but I'm sure he looks like his dad before he got money. David Ellison just was handed. I never want to hear the phrase Nepo baby again, because it's really, rich people do it all the time and no one says anything to them. No one said. David Ellison was just he's like 26. And his dad was like, do you want Paramount? And he's like, what? I'm hungover and I'm about to do a keg stand. Call me back. He gives Paramount, after Netflix, they were kind of in open competition for purchase. After Larry Ellison and his team won that, he gives Paramount and Skydance over to his son David Ellison. Of course, underneath that umbrella of Paramount and Skydance is CBS. And CBS, and don't worry, we'll get back to this, but CBS had the reins handed over to Barry Weiss, who at the time was running a Substack column, and then was just given the title of chief editor at CBS, and immediately ran that into the ground. And what do I mean when I say ran that into the ground? Let's take a look. CBS Evening News ratings have dropped below 4 million viewers. That's not great. To roughly about 3.8 million for the week ending in March 13th, 2026, following the network overhaul and the installation of Tony Dokapil. If you don't know him, he's the one that Ta-Nehisi Coates kind of verbally undressed after he tried to go after him about his book after visiting Israel and Palestine. After he was embarrassed in the morning interview, talk about failing up, he was given the flagship evening news show on CBS, and they've seen an incredible drop in viewership. This man is a dud if I've ever seen one. And, that doesn't stop you from failing up. And this guy didn't. But, CBS ratings are in the tank. But again, with less and less competition, that's one of the other things that we're seeing with this regime, is because it's kind of like what we saw happen with the airlines. You notice that you never see like wildly different prices. Sometimes you'll find depending on the destination, but the airlines, because there's so few left. It's American, United, Southwest, JetBlue goes some places, Delta, but there's not like, there used to be a bunch. And, remember Northwest, remember Value Jet? There used to be all those random ads. There was like Delta Song. I used to take those a bunch. They were the first ones to have like the TV in the headset. There was like Virgin Airways. There was Hawaiian Airlines, Alaskan Airlines, and all those kind of went away and they were all absorbed. And when you have less and less companies competing, they can also call each other and be like, hey, why don't we stop dropping our prices and just keep our prices just always kind of in the middle? So we're never going to have to gouge our own bottom line by having crazy sales. And that's really kind of what's going to happen with television, because if you've got one guy that's pretty much in charge of, TikTok, CBS, HBO, and CNN, and then you've got another guy that's in charge of Twitter, and you have Zuckerberg in charge of Facebook and Instagram. what are they competing over? Because where are me and the other colleagues going to go? Anywhere you go online, we are under the thumb of a guy that's got this face, the face that says, imagine what kind of porn I have to watch. So I guess the bigger question is, and maybe it's not even maybe, this is a question I was asking myself because I wanted to have the answer before I came on the show today. Am I going to cancel HBO and CNN? And the question is, I mean, the answer is I'll talk to Sarah about it, and it's on the table. We are in the middle of riveting the series that that I'm rewatching, but I kind of didn't remember, Boardwalk Empire. I don't want to stop watching that. We started watching Neighbors on HBO last night. It is fantastic. Is anybody watching that show? It's crazy. So it's like, what are we going to, like, how much are we willing to suffer to make a point? Because we do have to be honest that the Target boycott, which is still ongoing and looks like, especially for a lot of people on the left, will be forever a boycott. It's hurt their bottom line. When they tried to take Jimmy Kimmel off the air, people canceled Disney Plus. Remember that? And what happened? They were like, we are just kidding. Jimmy, you going to laugh when you hear this. Jimmy wasn't feeling good last night, so we took him off. He'll be back tomorrow. So it does show that these work. Will enough cancellations do something? Have I already paid for this month? Yes, like 2 days ago. Jesus, can we do this at the end of my 30-day sub? Anyway, I'll talk to Sarah, but if she's down to cancel HBO, I am too. So what do we, and also affecting me, a comic, not so much anymore, but Comedy Central is under there. We're going to watch a lot of these satirical shows go away because if I'm John Oliver, I'm saving my checks. If I'm South Park, not that they need to, but I'd be saving my checks because remember those South Park episodes where they were showing Trump's tiny micropene? You think he forgot that bitter old queen? You think he forgot that? Trump is going to have Comedy Central. It's just going to be the Greg Gutfeld show all day, just the way MTV used to show ridiculousness. That's how it's about to be with Gutfeld. The idea of comedians on television is going to be gone. The idea of comedy, of satire, especially political satire on television, is going to be gone. We had the head of the FCC, Brendan Carr, the other day saying, openly saying that if, these broadcasting companies didn't act accordingly, he would pull their license. Quite frankly, as somebody that performs live doing stand-up, and this is weird because I had this thought last weekend when I was at a venue here in Colorado. Beautiful venue, had a beautiful time. And I always clock when I'm having a conversation that I've never had before. It really, especially so many years of stand-up, you kind of, oh, how things going? Oh, yeah, next week we got Bill Bellamy coming. You just have these conversations. And this conversation was different because I was talking with the stage manager at this theater, and he was just like, yeah, this is like our second time having live stand-up here. And we're just, we're a theater and we just don't want to be political. We usually have music. And like, he was just so worried. I mean, because when people say political, I mean, there wasn't like a comic on stage, like drawing plans up in the sand to attack the right with violence and pitchforks. There was a couple of jokes, but it wasn't anything that I would call over the top in any way. And you could tell that there's pressure from people that donate to theaters. There's pressure from, especially if you're a nonprofit or you're a government run theater, put the pulling of funding. We always talk about free speech. First of all, if you ever hear that again, you're allowed to hit that person with an umbrella of your choice. That free speech is gone. It's absolutely, absolutely gone. And they'll say you could say whatever you want. Well, and especially as it pertains to comics, I don't think they will probably single out one or two big comics and try and make an example out of them. But what they'll do to the other venues, the smaller venues, just the comedy clubs, the local one in your town or your county, is what they'll do is they'll just threaten them. They'll say almost like when you're showing like a pay-per-view fight at your bar and you don't have that license, they'll just fine you. So this authoritarian government will just be like, hey, Chuckle Hut, keep doing what you're doing. Have as many comics come through your venue as you want. But if we get one complaint that there was anything attacking this regime, you'll be hit with this fine, or you'll get audited randomly. Any Gestapo authoritarian tactic that you choose is one that we'll reach from, depending on which one we'll grab. That's what we'll do to your venue. So if you're the owner of said Chuckle Hut, your profit margins are okay, but they're thin. Can you risk a $15 fine because somebody made fun of Melania Trump's documentary? Are you going to risk that? Or are you just not going to book that comic? Now, what are the ripple effects of doing something like that? Comics who want to work will take the eraser of their pencil if they're still writing jokes in 1987. I still like to write with a pencil. What of it? And they'll erase that Melania joke. And so you have retroactively curbed speech, curbed satire, curbed opinion. That opinion will now no longer exist in the public zeitgeist. And that is how you bring in what we see in modern day Russia, what we see in a lot of autocracies. You know, it's this, a lot of authoritarianism. And what would happen also if maybe you gave people a little incentive to snitch on their neighbor, on their comedy club? You know, what do you get? You know, maybe we'll give you a $5,000 bump. Remember when what were they trying to do in Florida? They were trying to ban a book or something. We were still on DBL, and they were trying to ban, there was some Republican stuff. They were trying to ban a book or something. And they were like, if one person in the county writes a complaint about a book in the library, that book will be taken off and put on the blacklist. And a note came up that was clearly written like in crayon. It was like, I have a problem with Huck Finn or something. And DeSantis was like, you know the rule. And they pulled it. It's the way that they're slowly changing and narrowing not only things that you can say, but things that you can hear, new ideas that you can share. Those are going to go away. And a lot of your neighbors that voted for this regime that right now are like, man, he sucks, my gas prices. I think people are really telling on themselves when they immediately go to gas prices. They never say, oh my God, they bombed a children's school. They go, I'm trying to get to Kissimmee, Florida. It's going to cost me another $48. I feel like anybody that voted on the left can complain. I would think you guys would have other complaints like, oh my God, they're taking comedy off the air. Oh my God, they're about to put my 19-year-old daughter in a draft. I would think that would be your oh my God, but I guess it's your trip to Six Flags this year. I guess we all just have different priorities. Like I said, I am working real hard to be, what was that? That was Pulp Fiction. When Samuel L. Jackson's character went through that personal transformation, he was no longer going to be a hitman. And he had the gun and he was like, if you had known me basically a few days before this, my face would have been the last one that you would ever seen because I would have killed you for what you just did because you did something dumb. But I'm trying real hard to be the shepherd. And I'll never forget that line because I feel like that's how I'm trying to be with people that voted Republican, but it's becoming harder and harder because every day it's worse. Do you guys remember when just like a day would happen and you wouldn't see anything about politics on TV? Do you remember that? Like when Obama was president, like or even Biden, like you just see him at like the G7 summit, like on a Thursday, and you're like, hey, that guy. Oh, he's in Germany. Good for him. You you remember that? And now everything, a matter of fact, everything, even in Baby Girl Sarah, I'm sorry to pop this up. Usually when I want to talk about the University of Florida, I want to talk about their athletics. They've got a great basketball team. I think they're going to make a deep run in the tournament. And we need to talk about the NCAA tournament because that is starting tomorrow or Thursday. So I just want to make sure. Wait, today's Thursday. When's the damn tournament starting? I'll just ask y'all. When's the tournament starting? Because I want to talk hoops before then. So hopefully, maybe this weekend. I hope it doesn't start tomorrow. I don't know. Anyway, this will be the worst story you're going to see about Florida, and it involves. Is it them? Nope, that's Pete Hegseth. We're going to get to him. Boy, is he your boy spent some money. Okay. Florida Republican student group sues university after suspension over Nazi salute posts. Now, I don't know if you guys saw this, but the group chat of a Republican student group was leaked, and you guys are going to be shocked. In these texts, they were very blatant about talking about how much they wanted to better their community, go out and lift up others that weren't. I'm just kidding. They were racist. I believe the title of the group chat had the N-word in it, which I was like, I don't even know if NWA has that. Jesus Christ, fellas. Maybe you guys have misguided anger. Maybe it's just black people. I digress. We sit here and we play patty cake with these groups. You see how righteous they are. That, I mean, you remember when you would watch like a movie from the late 80s and they would do like some prank at the dean's office, like we're gonna throw panties on your, in front of your door, and they'd be like, oh, I got suspended for it, and they were like, yeah, we did a prank, we're gonna get suspended. These guys are mad that they can't do Zig Heils and continue to attend classes. That is the level that we're at, and that tone was set when there were 2 Sig Heils by Elon Musk to kick off this second version of Trump. So in their defense, I'm sure they're like, y'all did this at the start of the race. The fire pistol, the starter pistol went off, and you guys did 2 Zig Heils, and now we do it a year and a half later, and y'all acting mad. Yes, we are. We're acting mad, and I think it shows that when we look at these stories that come out bi-weekly and they show some we see Greg Bavino. He was walking around just in full Nazi attire, like he had just gone to the party store, and that's where he has the dress because he is built like a child. All these guys have open Nazi affiliation, open Nazi admiration. And it's like, where does it come from? This is the pipeline, the Young Republicans Club, Turning Point USA, where they indoctrinate these people. And they're just like, hey, you know why you didn't get that scholarship? A black kid in Arizona. Like, what? But it works. It works. And they have a ton of money behind them. Turning Point USA, that was the organization that Charlie Kirk was a product of, and then ran a multi-billion-dollar corporation. And then when he was taken out, his wife luckily was able to step in. Luckily, she was there. What are the chances that Erica Kirk, also known as Erica Franzvi, was there? You should do some background information, like background research on what luck it was. I digress. These pipelines like Turning Point USA that decided college isn't enough, They now have I believe it's called something home team campus. What's the one that there was just a picture of Erica Kirk and Mike Huckabee's Marla Hooch of a daughter, talking about how the Turning Point USA version is now in high schools. I gotta find let me see, because it's you should know the name, because if it's in one of your kids or grandkids or nephew and niece's high school, you need to oppose that. Let's see, TP USA high school. But yeah, I just saw the clip of that. It's just, yeah, they're asking, do I want to start a club at my high school? No. I don't know. I don't see. Maybe it's just called TP. Oh, Club America. That's what it's called in the high schools. Club America. And they start getting what they do is they find disenfranchised white men, usually, and they indoctrinate them with like, you're right to feel this way. And they groom them throughout college to join TPUSA and other conservative groups, and they are then flooded with a ton of money to then go on the internet and spread right-wing propaganda. And that's why when you look at these right-wing influencers, you're like, they have how much money? What? Charlie Kirk didn't even go to college, and he was like a cajillionaire. These right-wing groups have so much money, and now they're starting it early. They're starting in high school, and it's part of a bigger issue. I think they're trying to get them in high school, and this is just my theory, because what they're trying to do is to stop a lot of young white guys from going to college. Now, if they're at college, there's a TPUSA chapter near you, but why wouldn't they want them to go to college? I'll tell you. Because in college, they might go there saying, I can't wait. I'm looking around this diverse campus and I'm disgusted. I see people of color. I see same-sex couples. I see at least one person that probably identifies as trans, and I hate it. And as they're having these hate-filled thoughts, some girl walks past them and they don't even see him. They just smell her hair and they go, who is that? And it's somebody that doesn't look like them, doesn't come from the same background as them. And they say, who was that? And they get to know her and they're like, oh, she's super cool. Oh, who are your friends? Oh, they're super cool. Next thing you know, TPUSA ain't so cool. College does too much of the eye opening, too much of the door opening into other ways to live, other walks of life, other pathways to choose besides being a pissed off suburbanite dad, which is what they never show the end of the pipeline. It begins with you pissed off in high school because the Asian kid's the valedictorian, and it ends with you in a 3-car garage in a beautiful suburban neighborhood, still pissed off because the liquid that flows throughout this pipeline that carries you along is filled with hate and also a lust for underage girls. And the anger and just the disregard for anybody that doesn't look just like you is financially lucrative for these people, because these people turn out voters. They become voters themselves. They become very active in the community. We could say a lot of the January 6ers were very active in their community. That kind of passion is what allows corporations, which is basically what's undergirding a lot of the Republican Party, corporations that make military equipment. That's stupid, Al. It's not like we're in a war, right? It allows corporations that have very unpopular platforms to win lots of elections. How'd that happen? How did the group that floated Project 2025, how'd they win? How'd they win? It's because of a lot of pissed off white guys. 53% of white women a larger than I thought, when I say larger, a larger than I thought percentage of Indian Americans, um, Latina and Latino men turned out for Republicans this last time, and now we're seeing. Didn't they deport the Latinas for Trump's husband or something? Um, yeah, people, minorities especially, they had to find out the hard way that you're not really invited to their cookout. Y'all were always invited to the black cookout. We tried to get y'all to come, and y'all were like, nah, dog. And because of that, a lot of people tried to go to the Trump cookout and were turned away at the door. The problem is they kept somebody you loved and they sent them to a random country. Um, you can see how all this is interconnected. Whether we talk about what we're looking at with CBS, who's running it over at CBS, who's actively making strides against this administration, Jimmy Kimmel, comedians, TikTok, all of them are gone. Stephen Colbert gone. Jimmy Kimmel still in place just because there was such a backlash. But John Oliver will probably be gone. South Park, I can't imagine will survive. And I had that picture up the other day of how much this administration has gotten rid of any of the naysayers, which really was the downfall of Trump 1.0. That on top of you guys to figure out a way to get UV light into your lungs to cure COVID. That also did not help. Speaking of did not help, let's talk about somebody that didn't help themselves by letting a little bit of info slip. And that would be our man Pete Hegseth. It's funny because we mentioned it on the show yesterday. Michael Dean and I, shout out to MD. I had so much fun talking with him on the show. Michael Dean is a light in this world. And I'm glad you guys got a chance I got to work with that man every single day. And I was like, how is this guy so nice? Like every day, I'm like, who is this guy? He's always like that. He's an amazing, amazing human being. He's going through some stuff right now. Obviously, I'm not going to get into that, but he'll come out of it. He's got the right attitude. And I've always tried to instill it in people I love, including Tori, that like it sucks now. Yes, whatever you're going through personally, financially, whatever, but it will get better. I had to tell myself that many times. So Michael Dean and I briefly talked about the $93 billion that Pete Hegseth spent in September. And I was like, is that right? Is that right? It was at the end of the show, so I'm glad we didn't get into it because I hadn't done much research on it. And I was saying 93 million. Don't I have egg on my face? I thought $93 million was a lot for one war hawk that has a couple open SA cases on him. Look up his background. He is a monster, a real one. When he was taken to trial over what he allegedly, even though I believe he was found not guilty or like the case was thrown out as it always is with, the nurse testified as to what he did to the victim in that situation. So you should check out who's running our Department of War. It's this guy. Not them. They'll be there soon. Okay. So they tracked the Pentagon September spending spree in 2025. And I thought it was interesting. I was like, why did they spend so much money at the end of September? And it's because if you haven't spent that money by the end of the year, you lose it and it goes nowhere. It goes back to the people. So that's considered nowhere to them. So what do? It's kind of like when you're at a nice hotel and you got to check out in 30 minutes, you start stealing the expensive stuff. And yes, instead of you and I stealing some conditioner we probably wouldn't buy for ourselves, old Pete spent $50 billion in the last 5 days. There was a movie with Richard Pryor called Brewster's Millions. And it was him, what was that? Probably in the late 70s, maybe really early 80s, where he had to spend how much? Somebody, please tell me what the actual amount of money he had to spend in that movie, but it was in the millions, and they were like, it's impossible. And here we are, 4 decades later, and Pete Hegseth is like, how about Brewster's 50 billions? He spent $50 billion. What could that have done? What could $50 billion have done for your community, for my community, for our health insurance? What could it have done? Well, it went to good use, colleagues. So stop being selfish with your health insurance BS, because this went to some real, like a really good place, in my opinion. He spent 225 million dollars on furniture. He spent $2 million on king crab. I'm assuming it's king for 2 mils. That better be. We ain't talking Red Lobster, dog. We're talking king crab. I want you to show me the crab while it's alive in a little pool, and then be like, "We'll be right back." Say goodbye to Frank here. And $6.9 million on lobster tails. What is this? The prison scene in Goodfellas? Where are you storing all this? Or are you using it? Are you melting it down and using it as gel for your hair, Pete? And $15 million on ribeye steak. This is like what a high level gold digger would be bragging about in her PowerPoint presentation. She's like, "Okay, guys, look, you can mess around with married man, maybe get him for 100,000. That's kid stuff. I want you to, I want you to get him to pony up $2 million on king crab. All right, now enjoy our graduate course taught by. I'm going to leave that there. Initials MT. All right. There we go. Freedom of speech. I was scared to say it, and I should be, because they're listening. Okay. This was a tweet that says in 2025, Pete Hegseth reportedly spent $93 billion, went on a $93 billion Pentagon spending spree that included $15 million on the ribeyes and the steak and lobster, like we talked about. But these are the little things. The 140 on donuts, 124 on ice cream machines, 98. Why is a grand piano only 100,000? I would take a grand piano over $140,000 worth of donuts. Maybe I'm an elitist. Keep in mind, this happened just 2 months after Trump and Republicans cut food stamps and Medicaid funding in exchange for huge tax cuts, mostly benefiting the rich. The word mostly is doing a lot of work in that sentence. The word mostly is doing the kind of work where you're doing a burpee and you also have a weight sack on your back. You're doing a lot of mostly benefiting the rich. Yeah, I'd say it mostly did. I would say it mostly did benefit them. Again, all the people that I heard bitching nonstop about how old Biden was, bitching nonstop about how you can't say anything anymore. You know what else you can't say? I have health insurance. I hope it was worth it. I hope it was worth it. And we'll see how y'all feel once they're out of poor people to send over to Iran, and they got to start sending y'all suburbanites sons and daughters. I don't want anybody's son, daughter, however they identify over there. But this is initially touching us at the pump, and you see how Americans are recoiling. I've talked to friends of mine that can recount in detail what it was like to watch the draft and how that permanently affected them because they were so scared. I think about my son, Elijah, who's looking forward to a life working in the theater. And I could imagine him on a Chinook helicopter landing somewhere in the jungles of Vietnam. I don't even know if he'd know which way to point the gun. He's not a violent kid. And a lot of people's kids are not violent kids. A lot of people were sent over to Vietnam were not violent people. They were people whose parents had the audacity to not be millionaires and have the government on speed dial. That's who went over to Vietnam. And then after the Pentagon Papers were released, that showed that we knew that we couldn't win the war, but we kept it going for another 3 or 4 or 5 years, um, because at that point we didn't want to admit defeat, and it was making a lot of money for the prison. The prison, excuse me, that's another for the military war industrial complex that they just left, 3 or 4 years for young people to be in a slaughterhouse and come home a shell of themselves. This country has a lot to answer for. And I think the reason that we are where we are with the Epstein files and the lack of accountability is because there's never been ever any accountability for anything, whether it's MLK, JFK, Vietnam, and the Pentagon Papers. Nixon was just allowed to throw the peace sign up, say, I'm not a crook, face no, Gerald Ford had no issues with him, did not prosecute him. And that leads to George Bush feeling comfortable enough to start a fake war in Iraq. He faced no criminal charges for that. Nothing happened to anybody that initiated that lie. And we roll that over into the financial crisis with the housing market and the big short there, and the fact that our economy, and especially as it pertains to the affordability of homes, is still impacted by what happened then. Nobody faced any accountability for that. And now we spin around on our chairs and we throw our hands up saying, how has nobody faced accountability for Epstein? Because this is not a place where people face any kind of accountability for trying to make a ton of money. You face repercussions when you're John Lewis and you try and cross the Edmund Pettus Bridge. You face repercussions when you and a bunch of other people that are proud to be gay stand up to the cops that are attacking you every day at Stonewall there in New York City. You face long-term hardships for that. You face being wiped out by the FBI when you're the Black Panthers just trying to have some equity in your neighborhood. You face repercussions for trying to do what's right in this country, but that still doesn't mean that you don't do them. Because the bottom line is, even if y'all did try, or let's say came to a financial windfall and all of a sudden you're in the same tax bracket as Jeff Bezos, as Pete Hegseth, as Donald Trump, you would hate to hang out with them. The dirty secret is rich people are so boring. That's the real pain. Sitting around and having to fake laugh because they never had to be interesting, because they're always like, oh, do you know whose that is? So then people just laugh extra hard at your jokes and you think you're charming. The real punishment is having to be at a dinner party with these people. So remember, it's better to sit in somebody's backyard with some hot dogs and somebody's hilarious uncle than having to sit and chuckle as Jeff Bezos tees up his wife to tell her funniest story, which you don't even know where the punchline is. That's the worst part, when you don't know where to laugh. Not even that you know you're supposed to laugh, but you didn't. I'll say this, colleagues. Although I rant about all the bad things in this country, we would not be here if it wasn't for us and the fact that there's a boatload of good people that realize that the direction of this country is headed in the wrong direction. That don't mean they don't have a steering wheel. It doesn't mean that the winds, which is coming in beautifully, it's 72 today, which is, I'm not complaining, but is this weird? Anyway, as I said, wind, it just came in. I was like, it feels like Maui outside. Hold on. Before y'all leave, I got to figure out what is the temperature, because it is 80 in Denver, Colorado in March. Yes, things like that. Things like probably global warming. Sometimes you got to just look at the sunshine and be happy. Find the things that make you happy in this world and cherish them, because I certainly do, especially as I get older. And I really appreciate and love y'all for coming in and hanging out on a Wednesday with an old Black man that's got more and more gray in his hair. and a camera that's just so. I don't know why you guys keep showing up, but if you do, I will too. That's my promise. Colleagues, I love y'all so much. Remember, please tell a friend to tell a friend that we've got a budding community here, and there's a lot of love in the chat room. So, with that said, we'll be here tomorrow. Me, Tori, Michael Dean, doing what we do. And in the meantime, I'm gonna go get Sar from work. We're gonna go get some tacos. And remember, everything can't be all bad because we still got tacos. Love you.